Hey you guys! Today we have this mini arcade machine to show you. The cabinet is fully 3D printed and is very easy to build. You want one of these? Stay tuned and we will explain how you can make your own. Hey you guys, welcome back. But before we start, please give us a like if you enjoyed this video, and if you are not a subscriber yet, please subscribe and hit the little bell to be notified every time we publish a new video. Also, if you wish to help the channel, you can by using the affiliate links posted below in the description or by joining our Patreon page. So, in the previous video, we talked about Octoprint and explained how you can install it using a small Raspberry Pi. In today's video, we will explain how you can use the same Raspberry Pi and make this awesome mini arcade machine. Okay, let's start from the top. First, gather all the materials you need. The cabinet is fully 3D printed, so if you have a 3D printer, you can make all these parts. We designed this cabinet so that all the parts would fit on most small printers, so if you have like a Prusa or an Ender 3 or a Tivo Tarantula, you can print them. Use the link in the description to download the files and open them in your slicer. Some of the parts you need to rotate in the slicer so they can be easily printed. Most of the parts don't need supports, but the ones that do are easy to print. For the rest of the parts, some of them are optional, but the main ones are the Raspberry Pi. We recommend you to use the 3B or better yet the 3B+. Power supply. The Raspberry Pi does not include a power supply, but we can buy the official one. We bought this one instead. The output is 5 volts and 3.1 amps. Memory card. You will need a microSD card to install Retropie. Try and get one with high read and write speeds. The display. There are many displays on the market that you can use, but they must have an HDMI connection. The cabinet was designed for this 8-inch display, but you can use one of these 7-inch ones or even a smaller 5-inch one as long as you print an adapter for them. Some display models have the HDMI board separate from the display. Make sure that the display that you buy includes this board. HDMI cable. You need one to connect the Raspberry Pi to the display. Try and get the shortest cable you can find. Joystick and buttons. You can get all of these together, and they also include the small board to connect them by USB. Normally, the Pi doesn't need active cooling, but because we will have it installed inside the cabinet, we will add small heat sinks and this 30x30 fan. We will also use this USB extension and one on and off switch. Audio board and speakers. These are optional. The Raspberry Pi has audio output, but you need to amplify it. We will be using this small board. This small amplifier has stereo output and 3 watts per channel. We also have these small speakers. For all these parts, check the description below for all the links. Now for the assembly. This is the bottom piece. We can start by installing the feet on the bottom side. These are the feet. They were printed with black TPU. There are 4 holes on the bottom side that we can use to install the feet. Next, we can install the fan and the Raspberry Pi. Take the fan mount piece and install the small 30x30 fan. To secure the fan, use 4 M3x10 screws. If you have a tap, you can use it to make the threads in the plastic. To secure the fan assembly, you can use 16mm long self-tapping screws like these ones. Next, take the Raspberry mount piece and install the Pi. You can use M3x6 screws or self-tapping screws like these ones. We decided to use these self-tapping screws because they are easier to use. To secure the Pi assembly, use 12mm long self-tapping screws. The fan can be connected directly to the 5 volts on the Pi's GPIO pins. For the audio board, you will need a soldering tool and solder a few wires to the board. At the left, we have the audio left and right outputs. The output wires, we need to connect them to the small speakers. To power the board, we can use the 5 volts from the USB connectors of the Raspberry Pi. We can use one of these USB adapters to connect the wires. On one of the sides of the connector, we can read the pins labels. We need to connect the plus and the minus. The other pins will not be needed. Pay special attention to the polarity when connecting the wires. For the audio coming out from the Pi, we can use this jack adapter. Don't follow the labels on the jack adapter. The schematic you need to follow is this one. The tip is the left channel, next is the right channel, and next is the ground. The last one is the video that we will not need. Use a multimeter to confirm the pins. There's a small hole at the side of the bottom piece. This is where we will place the audio board. There is no way to secure the board with screws, so it will be secured with this nut. Connect the USB adapter to one of the USB connectors from the Pi. And this is the middle section. Here, we will attach the HDMI board and the display. Get a couple of M3x10 screws and insert them in these 2 holes. Place the HDMI board with the HDMI connector facing up and secure it with a couple of M3 nuts. Take the display and slide it in the display slot. Be very careful with the flat cable. Connect the display flat cable to the HDMI interconnect board, and don't forget to lock it. Move the speaker wires out of the way and install the middle section on the bottom piece. Again, be careful with the flat cable from the display. Get some electrical tape and cover the display's interconnect board. Before moving to the next step, pass the speakers and their wires over to the top. And this is the top piece. There are a couple of openings for the speakers, and to secure them, you will need 8 M3x12 screws and 8 M3 nuts. Insert the screws first and then install the speakers. Use the nuts to secure the speakers. The HDMI board also includes this small board with buttons. These buttons allow to change the video input and access some menus. Since the display will always turn on using the previous defined settings, we will only need to use this the first time and only to set the video input as HDMI. Nevertheless, we will keep this connected to the HDMI board, and we will use some heat shrink tube to protect the board. At the back, you have a hole that you can use to install an on and off switch. For this to work, you need to cut the wire from the power supply and pass it through the switch. And this is the joystick panel. Get all your buttons and install them in the panel. The smaller ones will be the select and the start. If you have different color buttons, place them the way you like best. Next, take the joystick PCB and connect the 4 wires from the joystick. Don't worry about which wire connects to which connector. We can set up this later on. Just make sure you connect all the wires on this side of the board. Get some M5x10 screws, washers and nuts to secure the joystick. Unscrew the joystick ball and remove the sleeve, and then install the joystick. Next, connect the button wires to the joystick board. Again, on the same side of the board. The USB cable is connected to the 4-pin connector. Pass the cable through and pull it from the back. Get 4 M2.5x6 screws and secure the PCB to the bottom piece. Arrange the cables and place the panel on the bottom piece. This should be a tight fit. Connect the joystick USB cable to the Pi. There are some holes in the middle section that you can use to pass zip ties and secure some of the cables. If you have non-shielded cable for the audio input like us, twist the wires and then connect the jack to the Pi. At the right side, there is another hole that you can use to install a USB extension. This will come in handy if you want to connect a second joystick for a second player. To power the HDMI board, we have this USB cable. This already came with the display, and it's great because we can use one of the USB connectors of the Pi to power the display. For some reason, if we turn on our Raspberry Pi and our display at the same time, it doesn't show any image. So, for that reason, we cut the display power cable and pass it through the on and off switch. Turning on the Pi and a couple of seconds later the display does the trick. Connect the power cable to the HDMI board and to the Pi USB port. Connect the HDMI cable on the HDMI board side and on the Raspberry Pi side. Now, place the top piece over the middle section. And finally, it has an arcade shape. And these are the side panels. They will secure the bottom piece, the middle section, and the top piece together. When printing the panels, make sure you have this side facing down. This way you get a nice finishing on the outer sides. Again, use self-tapping screws all around. This is the top cover. You can print this in white filament or clear filament and add lights at the back and a cool sticker at the front. Now, we need to get the operating system for the Pi. If you go to Retropie website, they have this already set up, so all you need to do is download the image file and flash it on the memory card. Since we have the Raspberry Pi 3, we need to download this image here. Retropie has also official installation guide and it's very detailed, but let's go through the basics. To flash it, you will need Etcher, and you can download it here. Once the download is complete, open Etcher and load Retropie image file. Select the memory card and flash it. When done, remove the memory card and insert it in the Raspberry Pi's card slot. There is not enough room to easily install the memory card, so move the cables away and some tweezers might help out. For the bottom panel, pass the power supply wire through and connect to the Pi first. Again, use self-tapping screws all around. Buy a knob for the volume control and install it. Now we can turn the machine on. It will take a few seconds to boot up, and then it will display a message to configure the joystick and buttons. Keep one of the buttons pressed to enter the configuration menu. Use the joystick and buttons to define all the keys. The setup we normally use is this one, but you can choose your own mapping setup. For the other keys that aren't used, keep one of the buttons pressed and they will be ignored. Save one of the buttons for the hotkey at the very end of the list. Hit OK, and now you are on the main screen. All you need to do now is to get your ROMs and install them in Retropie, because Retropie does not include games. There are a few places where you can get legal ROMs, and in the description below we included links for you to read more about this subject and where to get them legally. We also included the instructions on how you can copy the ROMs to the Pi, and it's very simple. Basically, you use a flash drive formatted in FAT32 and create a folder with the name Retropie. Then, stick the flash drive to the USB extension of the arcade. The flash drive LED will start to blink, meaning that Retropie is saving some information. When the LED stops blinking, you can remove the flash drive and connect it back to the computer. In there, you will see that Retropie created several subfolders inside the Retropie folder. One of those folders is the ROMs folder, and inside it, you will find several emulator names. Your new ROMs must be saved inside the correct emulator folder. When done, insert the flash drive to the arcade, and it will automatically upload the new ROMs and save them in the Raspberry Pi's MicroSD card. And that's it! The arcade is ready. You can also play with a second player by connecting a second joystick on the USB extension at the back. If you have access to a workshop, you can reduce the size of the joystick shaft a little bit. As we mentioned before, we designed this cabinet so it could be printed on small 3D printers, but we think it turned out pretty cool. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comment section below. Also, if you liked the video, don't forget to leave us a like, and if you are not a subscriber yet, please subscribe our channel. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We will see you guys next time. Bye!